Hello, everybody, and welcome back to SchmoeTalks. I'm just inserting this here at the start. This is the competition update for those who are interested and especially those who are involved to kind of wrap it up as I bring it up on the screen for you guys. So, for those of you who have been following the last couple of weeks, I've been doing a competition. Some of the early guests that I booked were invited to be a part of a prediction competition. They predicted the first 20 matches that were announced, and the winner is going to get a reward related to SchmoeTalks. So this week, only because it was the only one announced when we started the competition, the only match that we covered was the Barbarian versus Alex Damon. And so we have here, obviously, this was a 50-50 split. We didn't have very many of those, but 5 went for Barbarian and 5 went for Alex. And of course, Alex Damon took the victory by getting that Star Wars category and proving himself in other places when he needed to. And so that means the competition ends with Mr. Matt Beer definitively being the winner, 14 correct predictions versus 6 incorrect. So it's not even the point system that won. He just outright had the most correct predictions. And because of that, he will get his reward. Now, I said at the beginning there were 3 choices of an award that the viewers could choose. They could either pick their own topic for a SchmoeTalks episode and kind of be the prime guest of that episode. They could host an episode of the show, and it'll just be an episode that I can work them into. I'll pick the topic, but they will get to host the episode. And then the third one was an opportunity to appear on another show on the channel, After Dark, which is our other kind of movie-related show on the network. Matt has chosen to pick a Schmoedown topic and do a SchmoeTalks episode as a guest. So we will have that for you in the near future once he makes his decision. However, because we have 3 prizes, I decided to give away 3 awards. So our tied for second place gentlemen, Mr. Andy Sweet and JD Domash, will also get prizes, and you guys will see those come to fruition as well. Just to show off, it was very close in the end. A lot of people did very well. And then, unfortunately, some of those, Ryan and Jacob, who started off strong, and Colton, unfortunately, could never get out of that hole at the bottom. But this was a lot of fun. Thank you to those of you who participated. I've decided that I am not going to be doing a direct prediction competition for the next set of matches. But what I will be doing is bracket predictions. We had not 1, but 2 brackets drop for the upcoming Schmoedown tournaments. We had the teams tournament bracket drop, and we had the Star Wars bracket drop. And over the next couple of weeks, those of you who watch, anyone who watches, can have the opportunity to submit their brackets. I will be periodically putting up posts on the Facebook pages for both TMG Trivia and TMG Entertainment, so you guys can check out those posts and put in your bracket predictions there. Or you can find me on Facebook at Aaron Knoll and DM them to me directly. Either of those options works, and there's no limit. With this one, I limited the number of people who could be involved. With the bracket predictions, anyone can put in a bracket prediction, and the person who is most correct through both tournaments will get a prize. So with that said, guys, please be sure, put in your bracket predictions for the Star Wars tournament, for the teams tournament. You have nothing to lose because it's just a show, but everything to gain. It is just a show, but you can gain an opportunity to kind of make a guest appearance or pick your own topic or do something cool like that. So thank you guys for watching and bearing with me while I've been doing these updates, and I hope you guys enjoy the episode. I'll see you next time. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of SchmoeTalks, the latest episode. We are back another Monday, another week. I'm back in my normal location, not hiding out at a secret, very well-lit hotel. And we are here continuing the Flashback series, talking about Season 5 of the Schmoedown. And last week, I think the recurring genesis of the show was what a really weird season. And I think that genesis continues very much in this episode. So I'm looking forward to discussion because it really is interesting to hindsight these things. So let me go ahead and bring on the crew that I have today. We have a new member, we have some returning people. Let's bring him in. Up first, he's almost kind of inadvertently become a regular on the channel, almost taken one of those co-host seats on our Supernova show with Colton Roberts. His name is Mr. Robert Castner. How's it going, man?
It's going well. Yeah, I guess I should start getting pay soon.
I'm first.
You're first? Yeah. Well, I meant like down the line, but I definitely
Okay.
think I should be on a spreadsheet somewhere.
Yeah, don't worry. We'll get you one of those residual contracts. We'll catch it up eventually.
Good.
Good. Welcome back, man. Glad to have you. As I said last time, the most researched competitor or guest we've ever had on the show. Unfortunately, he couldn't completely do that this week thanks to copyright strikes, but we'll get into that later. Very interesting. Really interesting season, guys. So I'll drop him to the back for just a minute. Up next, he returns to the show. He is a name. If you watch the Schmoedown Facebook page, you see him all over it. It is Brian Nussbaum. Brian, welcome back to the show, man.
Hello there. It's great to be back on the show. Talk about like the rise of one of the greatest engagement players, Kalinowski, and also great to talk about the weirdest season ever on the Schmoedown.
It really is. I never looked on it that way until doing this show, but I guess that's the fun of it, right? Is really looking at the highs and lows. So I'll drop you to the back for just 1 minute. And joining us as well, he is another name. If you're around the Schmoes community, you may recognize. He joined us on TMG Trivia for our Star Wars tournament that unfortunately ended in, well, it didn't end technically. It just didn't. Mr. Mykel Rhett Dingess. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes.
I did. Perfect. Yep. Welcome to the show, man. Thank you for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me, man. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So let me go ahead and... Oh, should I drop them? All right. Wrong button. Let's bring everybody back in, and let's go ahead and get into it. So if you guys have been watching the Flashback series, you know how this works. We're going to bring up a couple of matches at a time. We're going to go around the panel and talk about what stands out to us most in those sective matches. And as always tends to happen, where we ended last episode was at the double Levine belt. Levine wins or defends the singles belt against Clark Wolf, and he wins it from the Patriots for the first time. And that puts us in one of those weird middling grounds where there's just matches happening for the sake of matches happening. And I pulled some of the more interesting ones that stood out. So we have in this section, we have, as I get the images ready, we have Damon versus Knapsack versus Scrimshaw, the live match, and we'll have both of those here. But this match ends with Alex Damon getting the title shot, 28 himself, Scrimshaw at 27, Ken Knapsack at 20. The second match we have is Team Action versus the Shirewolves live event match, which a lot of people may not realize. We know it's the genesis of the Five Horsemen, but it was the last match for Team Action as well, which a lot of people may not remember. They lost 23-24 to the Rising Shirewolves. Then, I said before I wouldn't include celebrity matches, but I included this one because I think it warrants an interesting discussion. John Roca taking on Alex Wolf. I forget what movie he was on the show for.
Hereditary.
It was Hereditary? Okay, cool. Hereditary, and it was a close match, but Roca wins 19-18. And then finally, we have MODOK versus Critically Acclaimed, a match that was MODOK's final match. Critically Acclaimed win by TKO 17-19. And if this image doesn't look familiar to any of the up-and-coming Schmoedown fans who have gone back to watch it, that's because it doesn't exist anymore. I got the image, shout out to them, from Late to the Party. I was able to crop it and enlarge it for the show, but it does not exist anymore thanks to copyright. which is kind of incredible. But I'll go ahead and start with Robert. Out of these set of matches, what kind of stood out to you the most?
So what I like about this group, Aaron, and by the way, I take a little bit of umbrage with how you introduced me because I did do my normal research.
Oh no, I'm sure.
I just did one of those fast forward things. I didn't watch all the matches. I just kind of like watched the questions and got the scores and did the interviews because, goddamn,
You did what I did. You did
too hard to do it the other way. The matches. This is an interesting juxtapose because this really takes into account the diverging paths of people. Because there's a lot of rising and falling. That's especially built in here with that first match that you mentioned, the Star Wars match.
Yes.
Is really the rise of Alex Damon. Even though we knew he was great and he was right there, but Whitwer just edged him out in that 5-way before Whitwer won the title. And then it's really kind of the decline of Ken Knapsack as a player. I know he goes and he plays Damon later on for the title, but I mean, the setting was kind of set in stone here that he was kind of losing his edge as a player, and he started to move a little bit more into. He did the Ken Club. I forget what Ken's.
Knights of Ken, I believe.
Knights of Ken.
The Knights of Ken
lasted they couldn't even get 15 minutes of fame. They lasted 14 minutes.
No, well, that's because Donica couldn't do what he needed to do to be the prize portion of the Knights of Ken, and then he ended up being, as we see at the end of this whole crop, one of the mouthpieces for corruption as we get further along in the Anarchy tournament. So I really, really enjoy that Star Wars match, especially because amongst these matches, I think it's one of the better ones just overall, especially between Scrimshaw and Damon. So that's the one that I like to focus on because, again, it's a real microcosm of what goes on in the second half of the season, which is rising and falling of certain personalities and players.
Yeah, and I'll move on to Mykel. If you've ever seen him on any page ever, you know he's a huge Star Wars fan, so I'm sure I know where this is headed. But what stands out to you, Mykel?
Oh, yeah, the Star Wars match for sure. This is definitely Alex's first win. I think his first match kind of got overshadowed by
Whitwer.
Whitwer. But, this was where he really took off, and he really started making a name for himself. Another one that stands out to me was the Shirewolves. Beating Team Action, because that really cemented their start too. The Star Wars match I really enjoyed because the second actually dueling of Scrimshaw and Alex because of the Fatal 5-Way the first time. The celebrity match I enjoyed it, but like you said, I'm all about the Star Wars matches. And this really is what really got me into, it's probably the Iron Man match right before this, but the combination of that and this is really what got me into the Schmoedown. I was a casual fan before then, but.
Yeah, and considering, like, these happen within a matter of months of each other, it really is a good way to, that's how you cement that, okay, this isn't just something we did for fun, it will stick around.
That's why I was really disappointed by the Star Wars match that came later in the season.
We'll get there. Ryan, out of this set, what interests you out of this set?
For me, I agree with the other members saying the Star Wars match was the best Star Wars matches ever. I think David missed one question on that match, the whole thing. And also, my favorite moment of the match is during Scrimshaw's round 2, where Harloff leads over to Ellis and tells the Conjure Club question. So Ellis said, "You're a dead man, Harloff." That was my favorite moments.
I think it's worth mentioning. Like I said, I brought up the celebrity match because I think it is interesting. Nowadays the league has gotten to a place where celebrities don't get celebrity matches. Celebrities are a part of the league, even like Kevin Smith, right? His first 2 matches with Jericho, obviously, and then they threw him against Brett with a funny haircut, and then now his next match is Stacey Howard. Like, okay, no, we fucked around with him. We know we can play. Now let's give him a real opponent and see what happens. And I like that they're taking that approach, and I think when Jericho comes back, it'll be very much that similar thing of he's on the other scale of he's 0-2. Who are some players that are downtrodden that we can kind of put him up against and see how he handles that, And I think it's interesting because this is one of the few celebrity matches where they didn't purposefully make the questions easier. And the only match I've ever supported them doing that in was when they did the It match, because those were kids.
Yeah.
And so, like, I get that one. They're not going to know questions about The Godfather, most likely. You know, you gotta scale it a little bit. But I like the fact that they didn't really change this match. It just, you know, he came in, and if I may have this wrong, but if I remember correctly, I think he wanted to play Roka. Like, that's why it happened.
Yeah, I believe so.
He wanted it.
You really get that sense in the pre
The thing they shot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the cutscene.
coming and getting at him. Yeah, it definitely seems like he called it out. I really like that match too, because it seems like with a little bit of seasoning, Alex Wolff could actually be like a legitimate player, and could have really actually won that match if he wanted to.
Like, if he came back in the modern day and kept that 0-1 record, I certainly think he could get a win. It'd be very interesting. But I feel like, again, just the brief mention, because they were a team from the beginning, but MODOK and Critically Acclaimed, again, another example of, like, an old team finally meets their ending against a newer team, and even Critically Acclaimed wouldn't last that much longer, but it is an interesting dichotomy of the two kind of colliding with each other. But I have to bring up Team Action versus Shirewolves, not because it wasn't a great match, but I mean, if we're talking about a season with story, which this certainly was the biggest season for story, I mean, you have to bring up this moment at the end of it, which might have eclipsed the entire event almost in and of itself. Which it's funny looking back on it, because it really is a faction that went nowhere, but what a moment.
I mean, won the award for Moment of the Year.
Yeah, and if you remember, there wasn't a whole lot of reaction videos to Star Wars and Action versus Shirewolves. There was a lot of reaction to Five Horsemen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was going through doing the clips, it completely eclipsed me that this moment happened. So I was scrolling through the match, I was originally going to take a clip at the end of the match with the final score, and I jumped past it, and I found this moment. When they brought Ben out dressed up as, like, Dummy Dan, and I was like, oh, I forgot this happened, and I started watching through it, and and again, we'll get to another moment with him in literally just a few minutes, but Ghai is fucking entertaining, man. That guy is a guy who knows how to do it.
He's the GOAT, greatest heel of all time.
Yeah, he's incredibly entertaining. Just different shots, all the... I don't know. How much do those things cost? Those look way more expensive than they probably should be.
They probably the robes or the swords?
The swords.
Yeah, I mean, they look like they would be sold at a very high-end concert at a stand for like $40.
Yeah, but like going through it, it was interesting how like this is how they chose to end that event with that big reveal. But it is almost kind of a waste that, like, if you look at that shot, they never really went anywhere, because shortly after, both Nost and Inman would retire.
Yeah, that's kind of the interesting thing about looking at that. You're like, well, none of these dudes are together anymore in seasons. And Guy's basically just around for the sake of doing the stingers and not really competing probably anymore.
Exactly.
I have a feeling they'll force him back into it when they go live. It's just, he really lost his edge when they went digital. Like,
he's crazy guy.
He seems like somebody who thrives on having people there. Like, it almost makes him play better. And so when you take that away and it's just him in front of a computer, like, yeah, his brain was off. I mean, it sucks because, like, I don't want to say it because I don't believe it. I honestly don't think any of them would do it. But that match versus Bateman, if there was ever a match in which you look at it and you go, I feel like he threw that. That's the one match where I'd go.
There's also the other card of the main event, Smith versus Jericho.
Yeah, like, if it was a really interesting match. But, I mean, so that's pretty much all there is to say about those matches without going too off the rails there. So we move on to the next set of matches, which was actually an event. Normally, with Season 4, there was enough matches where we could evenly end it, but we get the Collider Collision here as they stuffed more matches in beforehand, and a 5-match card. We'll run through the posters, and then we'll get into the matches. We had a 3-way match that I guess just kind of... This wouldn't happen anymore. Like, this is a match that just got chucked on here to have an extra one. Janine the Machine versus Stacey Howard versus Mark the Android and Draco. We have the Star Wars title match between Alex Damon and poor Bruce Green. We had Dan Murrell taking on Andrew Ghai as a result of that live event. We had an Inner Geekdom tournament match, Rachel Cushing taking on Eric Zipper. And then we had the Iron Man title match, Above the Line versus the Patriots. A match which, again, people don't really address it this way, but when you think about it, it is the last match for both teams, which never happens. That is very rare. But we'll go through these kind of briefly one by one. We'll start with the Andraco match, in which Andraco does end up winning by a score of 14-13 to 11. Anyone have anything to say about this one? Or is this just kind of the dud?
No, actually, I was going to say...
Good.
Oh, no, go into it.
Yeah, I was going to say that amongst these 5 matches, I think it ends up being like the closest match just based on scores.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough. And then what is interesting in that screenshot that you showed is, remember how good people's records were? Janine was 2-0 and Stacey Howard was 4-1. I mean,
Andraco's 6-6 now.
I know, holy shit.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, it's unfortunate. This was kind of because Janine is what is she now? She's now 5-6 with the recent win. But yeah, this was the first in a steady stream of losses. It's funny because you're right though. It is interesting how Stacey has a 50-50 record now, and she's called the queen of guessing. Here she was just legitimately good.
She was good. This was kind of we talk about asymptotic.
The beginning of the fall.
Yeah, she was pretty good up until the 3rd round, and then she caved, and she never got out of that nosedive. Interestingly enough.
Yeah, and then it's it's legitimately the wins are wow, she won that. Good for her.
Yeah. Honestly, and Janine's costume game was on point.
I agree.
Yeah, I felt so bad for the Viper squad this match too.
Yeah.
Being put together, I think this was their downfall of the Viper squad, wasn't it?
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I wasn't thinking about that. Yeah.
Which I wish I'd saved it. One or two, because I took so many screen caps. One of the screen caps got corrupted, and I was able to get one of just all of them standing there, and I forget her name, but the other girl who was with them walking the giant hammer in.
Marquis.
Yeah, thank you. Just walking the hammer in, oh my god, that thing is ridiculous that you have that.
And it broke when they tried to smash something.
Oh, that's incredible. So we'll go ahead and I'll move on to the next match, in which Alex Damon, and that is the look for this match right there. Alex Damon was titled champion by way of knockout, 25-3. If I'm correct as well, I believe this is the only knockout that's ever happened in the 3rd round. A couple of knockouts have happened in the 4th round, but I don't think any have ever happened in the 3rd round outside of this one.
I think you're correct.
So that's a record breaking.
You have to be right on that, Aaron, because it's so ridiculous.
Because I know Oyama got the speed round, because that's when it choked for him, unfortunately, was the speed round. So I know that one got there. Yeah, I think that's the only one. So Mykel, obviously you're the big Star Wars guy. So what do you think about this match?
It disappointed me so bad. I was with you. I was like, you have Scrimshaw, you have Knapsack, so many other even some people from IG. I was like, who's this guy? I felt so bad for him, but at the same time, I felt like it was them kind of shrugging off the Star Wars League. I don't think they were that serious about it yet.
No, because it was kind of a similar situation of how in the season 3, season 4 videos, I talked about how the singles belt was in kind of a circle jerk, where it was the same 3 guys going for it.
Yep.
The Star Wars belt was in this situation too, where it was all right, Alex, Ken, Sam, fuck Sam retired, throw somebody else in there. And yeah, it was really so I took, these are the 2 screen caps that stood out to me. This was the score after round 1. And Bruce's face says everything in that moment. He's just oh shit.
I agree.
I just remember screaming at the screen.
And then the other one was, which I feel bad. I feel like how this happened was Christian, because earlier in the season, I didn't include it because it wasn't a huge match, but I know earlier in the season, they had done Funhouse versus whatever Nick Scarpino played a team's match.
Oh,
and, like,
kind of
so
funny.
So they brought Funhouse people in. And so, to me, this felt like, oh, this was like another branch extension. But I feel like the conversation went, hey, I'm a Star Wars fan. I'll play. And because this is one of my favorite answers ever. When I just scrolling through the match, I came across it. The final question of the match, for people who don't remember, was who was the person that said this will begin to fix things? Or I forget the exact line, but the first line of The Force Awakens, and of course Alex Damon wins by getting it right. Lor Santeca, and Bruce writes "Old Man Jedi," which is I mean, that dead look in his eyes. Like, unfortunately, that is the definition of what this match was.
Yeah.
It was just unfortunate all the way around. But for better or for worse, it does begin the reign of Alex Damon, which. Very recently, a couple of weeks ago, was dethroned.
Last week.
So this is pre-recorded. That's why I say a couple of weeks ago. This will go up in like 2 weeks. Now, who cares? The people are well aware by this point. So, it is interesting. It's like, for better or for worse, it did something. But like, I don't know what hurt. I just remember watching this and going, and we've talked about this in the past, where it's like, there's very few matches where people have a reaction outside of elation when winning. I mean, Alex looks almost as upset as Bruce. Yeah. Like, he looks like, what? He feels bad, I think, that he won. Like, that was... I
think he's thinking at that time, I don't like the storyline they made. I really just should have taken the belt.
It was a great storyline, though.
I mean, yeah, but it's just like, I think he's like, I should have just taken the belt and not played anybody. I should have just been like, I'm fine. I'll take it. It's cool. Whatever.
I think Christian was hoping he would just take it, and then when he did, it was like, fuck, who do we throw in there? Yeah. That's always stood out to me as one of the weirdest, and again, the other weirdest choice for a title match we'll get to later in this episode, but I think it's the worst idea in the world to chuck somebody who's never played into a situation like that, because at this point in season 5, it wasn't just trivia anymore. The game itself, the gamesmanship of it was developing. And so you're taking, a casual Star Wars fan who's like, I get to answer questions about Luke Skywalker, and throwing him into something that is completely separated from what he thinks it'll be. And it's just wrong. It was just wrong.
He was a sacrificial lamb. He had to die so that Star Wars League could live. One of those.
I never came back.
And again, another person. This is a running theme. Another person who was one and done and never came back.
Oh yeah, another one.
Would you come back after that?
No, I would be so.
Double do.
No. I don't have an image from it, but his post game is just him nursing a beer, like, yep. So like, I'm done with this.
I still remember the promo, like, say, I guess I could take on David, I guess.
Yeah. Sure. Who's Alex Damon?
Yeah.
It's like, it's unfortunate. So speaking of where dreams go to die, let's move on to this match. Which is Dan Murrell versus Andrew Ghai. And I never noticed this detail.
That one.
I've watched this match more than once. This is one of the few matches I've ever rewatched because I think it's that entertaining. I've never noticed the detail where they put Ghai over Murrell's name. I've never actually noticed that detail till today. I don't know if that was on purpose or bad editing, but
I'm pretty sure that was on purpose.
Probably, but very funny. And I mean, what a match! Obviously, unfortunately, I couldn't get a screen cap quick enough of the middle finger, but 14-16 TKO.
On the table.
Yeah.
On the table,
on the table. Here we go. On the table. Just so proud of that win. I have to say though, to me, that is the best reaction I've ever seen to a win. And they can't do that nowadays because of like studio like sponsorships and all that. But just I don't know if that was planned or if that was instinct on his part, but to just hop up on the table and start screaming "fuck you" to everybody is the ultimate move in that moment.
Back when you could curse in the Schmoedown.
I miss it so much.
To be fair, I think if he thought he wouldn't get fired, I think he'd still do it and just take the bleeps. That'd still be funny. Not as funny, but it'd still be funny.
Probably.
So I'll go to Brian first.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll go to you. I'll go to you next. I'll go to you, Brian. What were your thoughts on this?
This is one of the greatest matches of the whole collision. Actually, it's like I remember the storyline for this, like how Bateman could be there, and like the storyline was like how he stole Wyatt's dog for some reason, and also the entrance for Dan, where Guy said, "Be him, be him." Oh, no, be this guy.
Yeah, it's something else. Mykel, what were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think this is what really cemented Guy's legacy in the Schmoedown, in my opinion. This was the first time I actually had like a speechless react. This is the first time I was speechless with the storyline, and I suspected for some reason Christian may have planned this, but obviously he didn't. He admits later on that he didn't even write anything for Guy winning because he thought there was no chance.
Yeah, he said
I think
Merle Rod, it's Merle Levine 2 live event, I believe he said.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, I forget the name of the show, but the show that Ben and Guy do when Merle went on it as a guest, I think the quote Merle gave was, "No,
Actually, with Abby.
On their personal channel. They do like just where they bring
Action
guests
Guys.
Yeah. When Dan went on, I think the exact quote Dan gave was, Harloff said to me, because Dan didn't know who Andrew Guy was, and Christian's response was like, come on, my grandma could beat him. Which really shows how much he underestimated him in that moment, which almost seems unfair considering he was debatably the better of the two, even at that point in time. It is interesting. And also this, talk about an interesting run of things, because nowadays, and we unfortunately we won't get to it in this episode just because of the way the title runs worked out this season. Again, this match I'm about to reference happened during this period, but because it relates to something that happened later, it doesn't come up here. But Guy would then go on to beat Riley, and I think
TKO.
Guy is people forget this. Andrew Guy, despite the fact that he is now looked on as the weaker competitor, has been in 2 number 1 contenders matches.
Yeah.
Which is such an interesting way that worked out, that he ended up there. Because he didn't really do much to get the second one, I don't think. He just kind of lucked into it, but it's I brought up the single image, but this is where dreams go to die.
So dumbfounded.
Before I move on, Robert, why don't you talk about it? What do you think?
So it's funny because they do that intro before they go in where Guy's taking the cell phone selfie.
Oh, yes.
You have to take that off the desk. I think the first time I watched this, I was like, how did Andrew Guy figure out how to cheat in front of everybody? Because that's the only way I could figure how he got through the first round. And obviously he did it. I'm just saying that it was so crazy that's how I was thinking about it. And then him knowing go ahead, sorry.
I thought there was going to be some storyline about that too, about him cheating or something. They had to have a rematch or.
No.
I was expecting it for sure, and then him knowing Dan's last question is crazy. Him going through the horsemen. You were talking about, Aaron. The horsemen don't really amount to much. It's because Andrew Guy kind of kills them a little bit.
He slayed a couple of ponies.
He slayed a couple ponies, and it's insane. You never like to believe ring rust is a thing. This is one of the poster child things of maybe ring rust does exist, and maybe we should take this. You should get tune-up matches before you go into high stakes matches like this.
And also, the cutscene earlier for this match, they had to see with Guy and McVeety together. That could have been a sort of team up in the future for the family.
I didn't think about that.
No.
But one more for the road. Just which my favorite part about the close-up is you realize the poster behind him has both Sam and Jeff smiling, which is incredible. It's just like, yeah, that's where all your plans crash and burn in one fell swoop. Which I guess it didn't matter because Sam ended up retiring anyways, so it didn't really matter. One way or another, his dreams were being burned to the ground. So we move on into the next match of the collision, which is Cushing versus Zipper, which, again, one of the weirdest matches I've ever seen put on a event card. Just an IG tournament match. Like, yeah, sure, let's put this in there. But Cushing goes on to win 19-14 by TKO. Nothing really surprising with this match, I would say. What do you guys think?
No.
Yeah.
Goes perfect in the first round, and he can't answer questions. It's interesting going back. It's crazy how, like, not seasoned IG players were, because he missed questions he would definitely get now. She missed questions that she would definitely get later on, especially when she won a title. And, I mean, it was supposed to be Cushing and Kalinowski. This is one of the, where the storyline really bleeds into the match, because it was supposed to be a better match, and they were just like, nah, we're going to save that for down the line. And I also like to call this, considering that Thad comes out and he tells Johnny LaCosto to get out.
Yeah.
I call this year the, have you ever seen Community? I call it the gas leak year. Because of Thad. Like, every time I see Thad show up, I'm like, man, I really just wish he would not be there this much.
Oh, God. Yeah, I remember. That's season 4, right, of Community?
That's season 4, yes. Oh, God.
I'll go see the Community, in my opinion.
So terrible.
Yeah, it's,
I hate it so much.
The season that was so bad, not one but 2 cast members left. But, so yeah, that's pretty much that match. It came and went, and it happened. And then we move on to the one that everybody was looking forward to, which is the Iron Man title match. Above the line, the Patriots, when nobody knew at the time, one last tango for the both of them. And this is a match in which is funny because it's the only other match that the Patriots played a trilogy in. Top 10, we talked about in previous episodes, the fact that they dominated that top 10 trilogy. Like, there's no, even without all the shenanigans of the third match, like, they just dominated that trilogy. They had it on lock. Here, they win, they get beat, and then they get kind of hammered, all things considered. 57-48. I mean, just look at the face on Drew. That's a face you don't want to walk away from a week later.
This was such a good. You talked about the Ghai reaction, Aaron. This is like,
that's a great one.
My favorite reaction.
Oh yeah, it just that is pure unbridled passion. That is just fuck yeah, did it. Which is great. And then obviously, one final shot of them with the belt, Sam with both belts. Actually, one of the most impressive things about the Schmoedown isn't Sam's run. It's just how a man that's 4'6" could carry both of those on his shoulders. And I don't actually know how tall Sam is. That's not a diss. It's just, like, legitimately impressive. How he
first ever double the champ.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is. He is technically. Which is it's weird to think about how they went that long, considering the early titles were a consistent circle jerk. It was the same people in contention. Like, Roca was in contention for both. Like, how'd they never get there? But yeah, the first double-belted champ. I'll go to Brian first. What were your thoughts on this match?
Me, as you said, McQueen's reaction, that sold me on the whole match. One of my favorite moments ever. And also one of the greatest gifts as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Robert, thoughts?
I mean, is it the last Iron Man match we had?
I believe so. Unless they cut the exhibition for Chester Park.
The exhibitions, I think they did 1 or 2 exhibition matches, but this was the last legit match we had that was Iron Man. Yes.
I really miss it as a format. I really wish they would bring it back. I really enjoy it as a format because, like Drew always says, it's really just kind of about your knowledge and less about the game, which I like in some aspects. I don't want the whole game to be like it, but I think every so often would be cool. I did also notice, and the Patriots do mention this before they break apart, they super split up, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes. The leather.
Everyone got their fuck yous in.
They really did. And it did seem like the questions did skew a little bit more towards above the line. There were classics and like animated for Drew. And I was like, yeah, if I was the Patriots, I'd be a little bit mad there weren't more crime, more, Arnie and Sly shit like that. But
True.
I mean, this is another one of those like revisionist what if. Like I know a lot of people have above the line in the top 5, but if they continue to play and they kept the belt for a couple more matches, wouldn't they be considered top 2, if not the best?
Probably.
It's
also one great match we never got: Action versus Patriots.
Because I guess the question really is, because we don't know where the league would have gone after this, but the main question is, could the Shirewolves have beaten above the line? And
Yes.
Honestly, at that point in time, the way they were playing then, no. Because both in that same season, both Clark and Rachel lost Sam. He outplayed them both. And I think with the force of knowledge that was McWeeny next to him, I don't think they could have beaten them. Which, again, that's revisionist history. The Shirewolves were, once they won, they were deemed like the next best thing since like bread. So it's like, so it's rather interesting to see, it really, yeah, it is really interesting. I saw a comment when I was going through, and we'll get to this part later, but Sam's retirement. I saw a comment on the video that was put in like ages after the video happened, and the person goes, looking back on it, the season was about corruption, but I think Sam fucked up season 5 more than anyone.
Probably.
And it's
I
kind
agree.
Of true.
Probably.
It really is interesting because he had momentum on his side. It's interesting to see, knowing like who the next people up were, because Bibiani would have been the next person up, and then probably Andreyko if that stretch still happens. It's like, could he have beat Bibbs? Could he have beat Andreyko?
I mean, he did beat Bibbs on his way, right, in the tournament.
Yeah.
That first round.
Yeah, and he was like a force of nature, even though Rachel and Clark took him to overtime, right?
Rachel did, I believe.
No, it was Clark.
Did.
It was Clark Walker missed all their 3.
But the Rachel one was close too.
It was
even
close.
Though there was close, it felt like Sam was a force of nature and he couldn't be denied.
Right. Yeah, and I talked about it in that episode, how like Sam built a very quick, impressive legacy of, when you look at his run, he was never the best scoring player. He never broke records. He never won by these enormous amounts. It was just always, I am one better than you, and that's all I have to do to win. Which is almost more impressive in some ways than like holding these records and then never amounting to anything with it.
Yeah.
But Mykel, do you have anything to add before we move on?
Yeah, I think that same mindset you were talking about is the reason he retired, because he figured, I'll go out on top with the belt. Nobody beat me. But I think it's kind of biting him in the butt now, because his legacy's kind of getting, overshadowed in the newer Schmoedown era.
It absolutely is. I think the only thing he has going for him right now is, which someone pointed this out to me, he is one of only, I believe it's 4 singles champions ever to defend, to defend, I think?
To defend more than once?
Yeah, that's what it is. It's like him, it's Dan, obviously, and then I think Riley. But even then, I don't know. It's him and Dan. Then Riley and Paul are the only ones to also defend it.
Yeah.
So it is interesting how it's like, no, I think realistically he still does hold a legacy. It is just interesting, the argument of what's better, hanging around to fall or just going out on top.
Yeah.
Because, no one's been able, like, we'll see if Collins can beat Dan again, or is the belt going to play hot potato back to Dan again,
Yeah.
I have no idea. And will we ever see a situation where someone will win multiple tournaments again?
True. Because the closest we could have come was last year with Collins.
Yep. Or Chance.
But that's the closest we've come since.
Yeah.
And also, what I think about Sam is people forget that he's the very first player to get 10 wins ever.
Yeah, it's true, because he did it before Dan did, because Dan retired.
Right, that's right. Yeah. Dan was at 9 wins in that match, if I go back up.
And Riley, too. Riley retired at 9 as well.
Or he
Yeah.
was at 7. He was at 7 when he retired, yeah. So, yeah, Riley retired at 9 initially. Yeah, you're right. That is interesting. So we'll go ahead and move on from the collision, and we'll move into the next set of matches, which is, again, kind of shifting things around a little bit. We're not going to quite get to the retirement because something, again, weird way the season ran. It wasn't in ebbs and flows. It was just kind of throwing everything out there. The Inner Geekdom tournament started, then kind of stopped itself, and then picked back up again. And then happened during Collision too. So we'll go ahead and get into some of those matches. So the only ones we're going to focus on is the run of the 2 finalists. So the first couple ones of those include Mike Kalinowski versus Jared Habon, in which Mike would win 20-9 by KO. And again, if you don't remember this match, it's because it's copyrighted. By virtue of it, which to explain that from earlier, if I'm informed correctly, based on company names, I believe it's copyrighted because it's when they used to do double build matches, so it's connected to that MODOK match, and that was a match in which both MODOK and Critically Acclaimed decided to dress up as Bill and Ted, and so the same song from Bill and Ted plays for like 4 minutes of airtime, it feels like. And I think that's why it got pulled, because they played the song for so long that it's like, okay, you can't get away with this now. So unfortunately, this match goes with it. But once again, thank you to Late to the Party for having very clear images for me to steal. And then we have Mara Kanopik, who makes her debut against Koi Jandru. This match ends 14-9 TKO win. Then Kalinowski, another impressive win versus Mark Donikas, 20-7, wins by KO. And then we had Mara Kanopik versus Emma Fife, a win by TKO. So let's go ahead and get into these. Robert, I'll start with you. Which of these matches kind of stood out the most?
Of the first 4 that you mentioned?
Yes.
Okay. By the way, before I get into it, I watched that Koi Mara match, and my wife is relatively aware of everybody because I watched them in front of her. She's like, "Wait, Koi competed?" And I was like, "This is the last time," because he got stopped.
Oh yeah, then he became manager after.
Which
he became.
This is another one of those. I forgot this happened. It's funny that she stomped him out of the league, and then he would go on to draft her and pick her up.
And he became the anarchy manager for Stacey Howard and Winston Marshall.
Oh yes,
another person who eventually became a famous
manager.
So very weird. Of those matches, I would say, I mean, they're all TKOs. I think they're all knockouts. So there's nothing. 2
knockouts for Kalinowski, 2 TKOs for Mara.
There's nothing interesting really there. I guess the thing I'll say, I always liked Mark Donica. And I think this was his last match, right?
It was. He moved away from LA shortly after. Yes.
Yeah, I felt bad he never got to come back. I think in the new realm, I think he would be very good. I liked him as an intimidating, tall presence, but I think he's
bigger than Kalinowski.
He's bigger than Kalinowski. I think as a player, he would have had a chance to shine. I mean, he played Inman for a title. I know he got TKO'd in that one too, but he was good.
That wasn't a bad performance. This was literally one bad day, and unfortunately, that's where it ended.
It's really unfortunate for a lot of these people that they end so abruptly and so ignominiously like that.
Oh, big words, big words.
Yeah.
Mykel, I'll go to you. Which of these matches stands out to you?
Yeah, I noticed the Mike Kalinowski and Jared Habon. I think Mike's record at the time was 0-2.
Yep.
It was. He had not won.
Yeah, that surprised me. That was his first big win. And then Mara Kanopik, of course, she impressed me with her debut. Nothing else really stands out too much to me. I can't believe Mike beat Donica as bad as he did.
Yeah, because Mike had lost twice, but I think he lost in a 5-way and he lost to Cushing. If I believe. And he'd never played badly at this point. He had not played badly. It was just he lost twice. And to have 2 stomp outs immediately back to back is really, especially considering both because these two played each other in a number one contenders match. They were both considered like the next great IG players, and Kalinowski said nope, and that's that.
Yep.
Brian, I go to you before we move on to the next set. Which of these kind of stands out to you?
For me, the Heyman Kalinowski match, like it's the rise of corruption, even like
Initially, yeah.
the clips from the yesterday, you have like Brad Gilmore talking about it. Even what I love most about it, the cutscene at the end with Kalinowski and I mean as Thad call it and Kalinowski call it Zipper Zippy Doodah, even the puppet strings. That's what I loved about it.
Yeah, I mean, this was certainly Kalinowski getting to flex that acting. And speaking of puppet strings, we'll move on. So the next three, the semifinals and the final, obviously, we've talked about painful matches. This is literally a painful match. Rachel Cushing versus Mara Knopic, fresh off illness and car crash. This ends 24-23. Knopic wins in sudden death. Then we had Mike Kalinowski take on Adam Halavic. That ends 23, which should be mentioned. Halavic, speaking of stomping out the old guard, I believe Halavic knocked out Hector Navarro as well earlier this year. So that's another
TKO,
one.
I believe.
Yeah.
TKO, there we go. So another one where it's like, okay, so they were just stomping everyone out. Halavic almost comes back, but Kalinowski and the puppet strings there wins 23-21. And then we go to the final, Mike Kalinowski versus Mara Knopic. All the care in the world versus couldn't care less, and Mara wins 25-23 in a Chewbacca onesie. So, Mykel, I'll go to you first. Which of these stands out to you?
Let's see. Did you say the Knopic and Kalinowski was just the number one contender?
Yeah, that was the tournament final, and it was the number one contenders match.
Yeah, that one stood out to me. And then, of course, the Jordan game of the Schmoedown. Cushing versus Knopic. That was amazing. Impressive. I think it was the first time we'd seen anybody go that far into sudden death. And you could tell they were both just feeling it. That was another one that it's probably one of my top 3 matches, I think, of all time.
Yeah, it's a really hard one to watch because it's like they are both playing like taking out like the legacy they both build obviously and winning the titles for themselves, but like that's a career making game for most players, and the fact that they are both clearly in physical pain doing it, like it's difficult. Brian, I go to you. Which of these matches stands out to you?
Let's say that the tournament finals, Knopic versus Kalinowski. You got one of the hardest questions ever as a 5-pointer. Dummy and you. I mean, who would even write that question?
Skaliski?
Skaliski.
Chris Skaliski, that's who wrote the question. Honestly, I feel like that's a 5-pointer now. I feel like that was hard for the time, maybe, but now that's a 5-pointer.
No, it probably isn't at this point.
A 3, you think?
3, yeah, I think it's a 3.
Yeah, which it is interesting looking back on it. Robert, I'll go to you. Which of these kind of stands out?
So, do you remember? And obviously nobody remembers this because it was way in ancient history. But do you remember when in Roman times that they would have gladiators fight and kill each other for the sake of people's amusement?
Yeah.
And everybody
last Tuesday,
Yeah, and everybody really enjoyed it, and that was cool. But I always think about if I was thrown into that time now, I'd be like, why are they doing this? Let these people live, for Christ's sakes. As you mentioned, Aaron, how it's hard to watch that Knopic Cushing match. That's how I feel. And I at some point, I'm just like, tap out, guys. Can we time out? Let them, like, give them a break and let them come back at full strength. It feels like torture. It's like torture porn or something. I hate it. It's a great match.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, but I hate watching it. It makes me like physically ill.
And it's like, and obviously they've talked about it since, where it's like Christian gave them the opportunity to opt out. They both said no. They both wanted to do it. And again, going through and pulling the clips, it's funny because I don't read the comments a lot of the time, but I've been reading them more because I think they're entertaining.
I have a comment in there somewhere.
The comments were like 50-50 split of like, oh my god, how could you let them do this? And like, guys, Christian's a father of 2. You really think he forced them into this? Come on, he knows, like,
No.
come on. He's not heartless.
No, it just feels that way, honestly.
It feels that. Because him and Ellis, or I think it's him and Ellis on this one, they're both trying to act as casual as possible about it. Meanwhile, you have 2 of your stars dying in front of you, like, ah. Yeah.
The other thing I'll say about this, Aaron, is that, we talked about Mara and Mike basically running through this tournament, but I don't really think either of them were at Super Saiyan level yet. Not really. It's hard to tell because of the basis of the questions. But Lavik, this was probably Lavik's like high watermark, right?
Yeah.
And he lost.
Because he played one match last year, I remember, and I don't remember how he did.
Match and got destroyed.
He also played for Baron last year.
He did, yeah, and I don't remember him doing terrible, but he still lost.
Yeah. I think this was his high watermark. It never got better for him after this, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. And I think that's by nature of, like, he's one of those players that, like, stepped into the league and showed potential, but this was when this, and it's weird because it almost is like growing pains. This was the season where people transitioned from casually playing a trivia game to really taking this seriously. And I think you see that in some of these scores where it's like, players like Navarro, eventually Hlavik, we're Donica, Haybon, players who came in, and I mean, like we talked about on one of the previous episodes, Haybon's the guy who was 1-0 with 4 knockouts. Like, that's an impressive record. And now his record's like 1-4 with 4 knockouts.
It's true. Yeah, this is really like the advent of studying, and Mara always brings it up. She brought it up a lot, especially for that Rachel match. She's like, she scared me so much I had to train harder, and you didn't really hear that a whole lot about people training.
No, it was a brand new. So we'll go ahead and move on, and now let's get to the thing that we had referenced a lot previously, which is you have a man on top of the world, and he walks away from it all, which I think this is the only time they've ever done this. It was a literal half-hour special just to talk about the fact that he would not be playing anymore.
I think they did it for Shirewolves as well.
Well, they did, but that was a match, too. Like, that was, they knew no matter, which I always thought that was a weird decision, where it was like, no matter what, like, we win, we vacate the belts, we lose, we retire anyways. But at least that had a match attached to it. This was like, not to be, I've been gratuitous on the show. This was let's suck Sam's dick for 30 minutes.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Which, I mean, not that he didn't deserve, I mean, that face says it all, but not that he didn't deserve it, but he was a great player, but it's like, yeah, this is such a weird concept for a thing. Like they had Drew call in, like, it was really weird, which you can almost hear the animosity in his voice in that moment where it's like, you mother, yeah, it was great.
Yeah, we talked about it.
Yeah.
Not really. He told me he was doing it, and I had to accept it.
Basically. Yeah, so what are your guys' thoughts on this in general? And we've talked about it throughout the episode and throughout last episode as well, how it really did affect the league. And it's like, I think that comment stands true. I think Sam fucked with the season more than Corruption ever could have by doing this. So what are your guys' thoughts? I'll throw it. I was go first.
Yeah, I was pretty disappointed. I thought, like you said, he had some good momentum. I thought it was smart retiring on top, but I thought he could have went just a little bit longer before he retired. Like you said, it threw a wrench in the whole league too.
Yeah, absolutely.
We were denied so many good matches because of this. It almost makes me mad at him.
We're about to get to some of those potential matches, so trust me. It is interesting. Brian, do you have anything to add before we move on from it?
Yeah, for me, I thought you could do one more match. Like, I want to see him play Shirewolves. Like, that's one match that I had always wanted to see.
Yeah, it's Yeah, it's incredibly interesting. It's part of me wonders, which I don't remember. I don't pay attention to like the people who are outside of the Schmoedown. I don't always pay attention to like why they leave and stuff. But like, did he have a job or something that came up? Is like, was
He's
it
an
like I
actor,
have to?
so
I think there was potential for a job, yeah. But I think that's
Okay,
probably
so it makes sense because I know Whitweird initially did it for a job of Supergirl. I know every time Drew's been banned from the league, it's because he got a job, which is the best thing ever. Just let's write some ridiculous thing in to explain why he's not here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of, I mean, Robert said it perfectly. He took away potential matches. Let's talk about some of those potential matches because both before and after this moment, we had a slew of number one contenders matches. So up first, we had Jeff Snyder take on William
oh no.
Bibbiani, and what was really the first time I think we'd ever seen Snyder just roll over and give in an 18-7 knockout win for Bibbiani, which sends Bibbiani to a singles title match against Sam Levine. Except, oh no, Sam Levine retires. So instead, we took an up-and-comer in the league who'd won, I think, 3 matches by this point, and we took another standing player who'd been around for a bit, Ethan Irwin and Mark Andreyko, fresh off that 3-way win, go against each other in another number one contenders match. And that ends 18-22 in favor of Mark Andreyko, meaning we get the Bibbs Andreyko title rematch. And then we had the Shirewolves versus World's Finest, another up-and-comer in the league, for that potential title match against Above the Line, except, oh no, that didn't happen. That was against Sick in the Head, but we'll get to that one in just a minute. Out of the contenders matches, Robert, I'll start with you. Which of these stands out to you?
So remember how we were going into Snyder and Dan this year, and they were like, they're the 2 greatest of all time in teams and singles and whatnot.
Oh yeah, this year, yeah.
I think this match is a detriment, a huge smudge on the legacy of Jeff Snyder, because I've never seen anybody just quit openly like this, and he does. It's gross, and I hate it. That pisses me off to no end.
And which is interesting because and again, this is something I did not think about at the time, but somebody mentioned it in a comment later, which was and I believe they talked about it. If you go through and watch, some of the Collision matches were recorded incredibly ahead of the actual airing of the Collision. And this match happened right before Collision. So there's a chance that they recorded the Patriots' loss and the split up of the Lions' Den before this was even recorded. Which may have even more so played into his attitude, because he just kind of had a shitty attitude from the moment he walked in. Like, he just looked like he didn't want to be there anymore. Incredibly interesting that this turned out this way. Mykel, I go to you. Which of these matches stands out to you?
Yeah, the Snyder giving up for sure stands out one of the most for me, because I think it still haunts him to this day.
Yeah.
Which, Roxy does a really good job keeping him out of that. Let's see. And then, Andreyko beating Irwin, giving Irwin his first loss. That really stood out to me, too. Because at the time, everybody thought Irwin was, unbeatable.
Yeah.
And then World's Finest record, 2-0, really stood out to me, too. I really remember enjoying them, but I don't remember them having that well of a record, which surprised me.
Yeah, that was a title match that or a number one contenders match that reminded me of the old days where they were both 2-0 teams, I believe, playing a number one contenders match, which is rather interesting when you think about it. Brian, before we move on, what stood out to you here?
For me, the Andreyko Irwin match, the way Andreyko has been with the Fight Club, improved his singles career, and also the way Andreyko reacted to Irwin's fight for I know this. And also, speaking about the Snyder Bibbiani match, the only thing I'll say is the entrance for Bibbiani, the Clue entrance. Great entrance.
Go ahead, Robert. You light it up.
No, I forgot about that. Wait, no, it's not this one. It's the entrance in the championship that I actually really love. But the Clue entrance is fantastic.
Well, we'll get there in just a second. As let's get into it. So we talked about how the Shirewolves played a number 1 contenders match, and the plan when that match was scheduled was for them to play above the line. Obviously, by the time it aired, whether or not they recorded it, probably they recorded it after, but the plan was to play above the line when it got scheduled. That did not happen, and instead, free-for-all winner that year, Breanna Chandler, cashes in her prize to take them on in a team's title match. A brand new team, sick in the head, 0-0, with a surprise teammate. I'll bring this point up after I intro the matches. So the person that gets brought out, at the time, I actually had no clue who he was. I later figured out who he was, which now that I know who he is, the connection actually makes sense why he showed up. Brian Bishop played the match as Brian's partner, known for being a part of the Adam Carolla show, which the Schmoes were a part of in their early days, so that makes sense, the connection, how he ended up being there. But that match goes the way you think it would. The Shirewolves win by way of knockout, 29-18. And they win the titles. Then we have Andreyko taking on Bibiani in a rematch of the first real highest scoring match of all time we had in singles, the first one that stood out anyways. And this one goes the way of Bibiani once again, 18-19, and Bibiani becomes honestly kind of the forgotten singles champ. I feel like if there's one person people forget won it, it's Bibiani. Just because of the kind of unspectacular way that it happened and ended so quickly. And then we also had, coming back from that number 1 contenders match at the end of the tournament, we had Jason Inman take on Mara Kanopik in the live event that happened, and Mara Kanopik went 5-0 to win her title, 21-20. On what is honestly still, in my opinion, one of the most insane 5-pointers of all time.
Oh
like,
my
what's
gosh.
the line from the like? Oh my lord!
Old Wynyard. Everybody.
Never. Which is funny because I completely forgot the answer. Like, I forgot that was a question, and when I was going through the clips, my first thought was, the only thing I can think of is Brandy Buck, but is that even a fucking wine? And then that's what he says, and it was like, oh shit, okay. So I wasn't far off with the guess. But yeah, so I'll go to Mykel first. Out of these 3 matches, which of these stood out to you?
The Kanopik match was probably my favorite one out of these ones because I think she was the first female to have a single title, not teams, right?
Yep.
Yes, yeah. She was the first female champ with the solo to hold a belt. Obviously, not the first female singles champ, but.
And I think her run was one of the best runs that we've had in this Schmoedown, and I think it gets overlooked all the time, in my opinion. And then, like you said, the forgotten champ Bibbs, he truly is. I think people forget about his reign there for a little bit. Then the Shirewolves beating Sick in the Head. That was a pretty good match.
Yeah, and my thing, like, looking back on it, and we can get into that discussion after we have everybody go around and get a say in, but honestly, this was what I was going to bring up, and I'll go to Brian in just a sec if you want to talk about something else or follow up on this. Somebody had said in the comments, I believe by the time the title match happened, they had already done the draw for Anarchy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if it hadn't been
match.
Yeah, it was after World's Finals.
If it hadn't been aired, or it was aired by that point, right? So they did the draw. Somebody commented, and I can't remember if it was like a later match, if it was a later comment, or if it was a current comment for the time. But somebody commented, if Brienne got paired up with Drew McWeeny, why wouldn't she just bring McWeeny out as her partner?
Yeah.
Which has to be which makes me think this is another one of those, this got recorded way in advance matches. But yeah, like, that is honestly such a missed opportunity of, like, talk about somebody who wanted a belt, to bring him out and have him immediately go for the belt again would have been one of the most interesting situations. But if we're talking about Brienne and Brian Bishop as a team, and quite frankly, if we're talking about all the people this season that got thrown into a difficult match on their first go, Brian played pretty solidly.
He's pretty good.
It was just it was a fucking title match, and that was the problem. Is two people who've never played a title match one person had never played a Schmoedown, and that got paired up in a title match. And it's like, Brian, I'll go to you. What are your thoughts on the match? On
For
all these
me, like
matches?
out of all the matches, first off the title match, Shirewolves. The entrance for Shirewolves is actually my favorite entrances for like a team. Like you had Clark as Thor, um, uh, Emma as Odin, Mark and Draco as Thor's Eye, and Cushing as Loki. The
Oh, the dress up. Yeah,
That
I
one.
yeah
have.
Yeah.
the Bibiani Draco 2 match. The question that still marks Draco's head for Nightmares, the Way to Rumble question. And for the title match for IG, it was a great match. I love the Tiffany Harlow saying, "Stole spin from the pegs" when one of the slices came off. And
Oh,
also, if you notice in the edges for Inman, you see a cameo from JTH reacts.
Oh,
do
that's
you?
right. I forgot about that.
Where is he? Is he like in the crowd or something?
He's like the guy waving the flag.
Oh, I didn't know that. I used to. Jeremy's great. He used to be a part of the channel. I love Jeremy. Yeah, back in the day, like when we just did Battleground, Jeremy was one of our hosts and admins. Good guy. Um, yeah. So I honestly didn't know that. I'll have to go look for him now. So yeah. So with that, we are through with all the matches for this section, but really, season 5 was lackluster in terms of matches. I think overall, but where they really started to figure themselves out was trying to do story writing, and really it was taking two people who are actual actors in Kalinowski and Ghai and putting them at the forefront of major storylines really helped sell it. And so we got some of that setup going into it. At the end of the Mara match, Kalinowski comes
Oh,
out joined
yes.
by Knapsack and one Chance Ellison, and essentially using his bitch boy Thad declares that he will be playing Mara for the title at Collision, or at
Spectacular.
Spectacular, which is that's one of my favorite behind the scenes stories, because it's like you'd think that was some diabolical thing they wrote up as a story beat, and it's like no, they just realized they legitimately had no contenders, so they were like, hey, go do it, why not, we'll use you. um which is incredible. But I mean, let's talk about the big one, and this is going to take up a bulk of next week's episode talking about it. We again, jumping around
Anarchy.
this episode, we go back to the end of Collision, at which point the
Oh,
Anarchy
yes.
tournament was confirmed. Uh, which I think my favorite thing about this is I'm pretty sure that's Matt Nost on the side getting
Yeah, it
mad, and I don't
is.
think Matt Nost has ever cared about anything this much in the Schmoedown. So
No.
why he was there makes no sense. But the man pulling the strings there, giving
Yep.
the kiss of death to the entire teams league and saying let's reset it with Schmoedown Anarchy. And just like with Collision, that is the cliffhanger we end on. Next week, we will be getting to that, and I'm looking forward to it because, I mean, Anarchy was really the thing that reshaped the league for the next couple of years. I mean, even till today, we still have teams from Anarchy
Yep.
alive and kicking.
Or like 2 teams left are from Anarchy remain.
Yeah, but they're still playing and they're still up there, and one of them are champions. So that says, I mean, yeah, one of them are champions and one is a number one contenders match. So that says a lot about their status within the Schmoedown. But this discussion is for next week, and I look forward to having a panel to discuss it with me then. But unfortunately, that is the end of this panel. Thank you guys for coming on. Obviously, as we continue through this series, I'd love to have you all back again, but let's go around the room and plug ourselves. Brian, where can people find you?
You can find me on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. I do Wiz Quiz on Thursday, Power Wizard World. This Friday, which would be last Friday when this airs, I'll be on Jordan's show, Tier Ranker Fights, ranking the Trade 10's sitcoms. Saturday afternoon, I'll be on King of the Wheel, like a little March Madness type show, talking about the 90s comedy movies.
Awesome. And Mykel, where can people find you, man?
I mean, everywhere. My name, Mykel Rhett Dingess. YouTube, Rhett Jet. Yeah, I post reaction videos to the Star Wars matches up there. Yeah, anytime you want to talk about Star Wars, feel free to reach out and have me back on.
Absolutely, man. I mean, well, I think it's already been decided when that Star Wars tournament comes up. There's no way I can't have a hardcore Star Wars fan on. So, there will be that opportunity. And Mr. Castner, thank you for coming on again. Where can people find you?
People can find me beyond what you had already mentioned. I'm pretty much a series regular on the Supernova show that airs on Sundays. We film on Fridays. I will also be, by the time this is aired, I will also be on an episode of Feature Presentations Digesting Cinema with, Schmoedown, soon to be Schmoedown, or we would have already seen it, Schmoedown participant, Christina Vassallo. We're going to do movies featuring a rapper, so that'll be fun. Otherwise, I'm just in all the trivia leagues, got some big matches that are set to air coming up. Otherwise, just add me at Robert Castner. I like to talk to people.
Absolutely. And we're doing everything and anything here at TMG. Myself and the channel runner Matt Beer weekly as they come up are uploading trailer reactions and movie reviews as we get to them, so be sure to check those out. And our podcast stuff every Monday at 7 p.m. EST. SchmoeTalks goes up every Tuesday afternoon. Cancel This Show, our political show, Begging to Be Ended with Alan Shepard and Matt Beer, goes up every Friday. This for the next few weeks, we'll be doing the Falcon and Winter Soldier reviews. And once that's over, we'll be reviewing, I think, The Bad Batch is the next show they have airing on Disney Plus, the next mainstream show. I'm still trying to sell them on High School Musical. It's not going so well, but we'll see what happens. And then, of course, Saturday nights we have After Dark at 9 p.m. EST. That is our weekly kind of variety hangout movie news show. And, of course, with Mr. Castner and Colton Roberts, every Sunday, the Supernova Show at noon EST. As I say every week, all your geekiest desires are brought up there. Everything and anything, they will mention it. So go ahead and check that out. Be sure to subscribe, be sure to like the video, be sure to click the bell so that you know when it goes up every week and you don't get my delayed postings that happen with it. And thank you guys for watching. Be sure to tune back in next week, and that is it for SchmoeTalks. We'll see you guys next week.
More mystery time.
Hello?